Welcome to your weekly World Climate Change News Report. I'm your anchor, Irene Zielinski. Our first story, climate change could trigger 9 tipping points of the Earth system. Human-induced climate change could play a major role in triggering the tipping points of the Earth system. Tipping points are thresholds where the slightest change could result in a completely new and possibly irreversible state. For instance, a slight increase in warming may not just cause hotter heat waves, it could result in a dramatic shift to an entire system. These tipping points, if triggered, could lead to collapsing ice sheets, forest dieback, shifting monsoons, and thawing permafrost. Next up, climate change modified the day-to-night temperature balance. Nature Communications has published a new study that shows an increase in heat hazards across the Northern Hemisphere due to human-induced climate change effects. The study highlights a phenomenon known as compound hot extremes, where hot temperatures during the daytime are followed by similar extremes during the night hours. Climate and meteorological scientists in China have explained how this phenomenon poses a huge risk to human health. If the global temperature rise is not curbed well within 2 degrees Celsius, there is a very significant possibility of compound hot extremes increasing by several folds. Our third story, climate priorities and states' actions. The European Union made the environment its main focus. Many states are implementing policies to decarbonize their economies as means of mitigating the effects of climate change. This transition requires deep structural changes and shifts in policy, politics, and many societal changes. The noticeable increase in the outcomes of climate change is putting pressure on states, which in turn can overwhelm states' coping capabilities. The main goal is to adapt to these changes peacefully. Next up, historic speech against climate change. A few days ago, the Indonesian parliament ratified a free trade agreement with Australia, and on the 10th of February, the president of Indonesia gave a historic speech in which he stressed verbally that Indonesia and Australia must work together to defend the values of democracy and tolerance, and added that both of these democracies need to act together to fight climate change, raise the commitment to reduce carbon emissions, and ultimately foster the development of renewable energies in order to become anchors for sustainable climate development. And next up, new data showing alarming rise in temperatures in Antarctica. Brazilian scientists have registered a temperature of more than 20 degrees Celsius in Seymour Island in the Antarctic, setting an alarming record in the region. Although temperatures on the peninsula and nearby islands have been rising consistently due to climate change, experts were surprised and frightened by this new data. This record appears to be related to shifts in the ocean currents and El Niño events, and is believed to have caused the decline of more than 50% in Chinstrap penguin species. This segues us into our next story, which is Chinstrap penguins headed towards extinction. A decline of 77% of Chinstrap penguin colonies in 50 years has been discovered in Antarctica by scientists of the Greenpeace expedition. Experts hold climate change responsible for the drastic reduction. The decline in the species indicates the feeble health of the ecosystem inhabited by the penguins, further contributing to the diminishing ocean's biodiversity and ultimately impacting other species. Campaigners are in the process of setting up 3 Antarctic sanctuaries for the protection of the Chinstrap penguins, as well as other species. Now, Arctic warming can freeze Western Europe. NASA has warned that an ocean current can bring a colder weather to Western Europe if it moves in a reverse direction. The melting Arctic ice is due to climate change, and it has caused the current to pick up higher amounts of fresh water from the glacial melts and other water sources in the Arctic. The release of this fresh water from the Arctic into the North Atlantic Sea influences the temperature of the Western Europe. NASA scientists said this phenomenon demonstrates how climate change has disrupted the balance between wind and ocean in the Arctic. And next up, climate change is going to reshape Asia. A study done by scientists from NASA, NOAA, and Stanford University team using satellite estimates and modeled precipitation data shows that rising temperatures due to climate change will cause more intense rainfall, which induce increased landslide activity in the high mountain regions of China, Tibet, India, and Nepal, a region that stores more fresh water in its snow and glaciers than any other place on Earth outside of the poles, on which more than 1 billion people rely on for drinking and irrigation. Climate extremities of fires and floods in Australia. The unprecedented and catastrophic extremities of climate change effects in Australia of the past few months have led to severe destruction, leading from bushfires to devastating storms that resulted in floods. These severe floods have drastically led the way to soil erosion and contamination of the water, owing to the destruction of grasslands and forest areas havocked by the bushfires. Despite the improvement in firefighting, weather forecasts, and disaster relief, the indispensable link between weather extremities and climate change cannot be ignored. And our final story, open letter from 2020 activists. A passionate open letter penned by 20 well-known activists, along with 2,000 other campaigners from a range of professions, has been published on the Global Goals website. The aim of the letter is to put increased pressure on global leaders to take more drastic measures on addressing these sustainable development goals. The hope is that leaders worldwide will take more responsibility and work towards immediate steps in working towards alleviating global inequality, poverty, and climate change. Supporters of the letter would like to see 2020 be the year of radical change and progress for both the people and the planet. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for World Climate Change news updates every Saturday.